Antonio's Story, Legacy of the Fallen, by Charles Olson. Chapter 22. Aftermath. Juárez breathed harder that night, the city's pulse frantic and uneven. The narrow streets, usually teeming with life, now felt like a maze of shadowed traps. Antonio moved quickly, one hand hovering instinctively near his waistband, his fingers brushing against the reassuring cold of the gun. His eyes darted around constantly, every alley a potential ambush, every silhouette an assassin. Blocks away, Mono knelt on the sidewalk, frozen by grief. Sophia's lifeless body sprawled tragically beside him. The world seemed to blur around him, her vacant eyes staring into nothingness, a stark reminder of the cruel reality. He wanted desperately to stay, to hold her, to mourn properly, but every second increased the danger. The hitters could return any moment, sealing his fate alongside hers. He glanced nervously down the street, the distant wail of approaching sirens confirming the urgency. Staying meant arrest, interrogation, and a swift death marked as a traitor. His heart twisted painfully, torn between respect and survival. With agonizing reluctance, he gently laid Sophia's head down and rose unsteadily to his feet, stumbling towards the waiting cab. His steps felt impossibly heavy, each one laden with guilt and loss. He climbed into the cab, throat tight, forcing the words past his lips. Go, now. The cabbie, startled by the urgency, quickly complied. Mono found an old towel on the seat and pressed it tightly to his bleeding shoulder. I'll give you an extra 100 for the towel and the trouble, he muttered hoarsely, eyes still locked on Sophia's diminishing form as they raced away towards El Chivo. El Chivo's office was a sanctuary of silence, dimly lit by the glow of a single desk lamp and the faint ember of his cigar. The wall clock ticked softly, each second echoing like a heartbeat. Antonio and Mono stood rigidly before their boss, their shirts streaked with blood, smoke and sweat mingling heavily in the stale air. The weight of their story poured out in rushed, clipped sentences, filling the room with a tension that coiled tighter with every word. El Chivo listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. When the silence finally fell again, he inhaled deeply, blowing smoke towards the ceiling in thoughtful contemplation. You boys must be effective if they're already trying to kill you, he finally said, voice steady but layered with an unspoken warning. Means you're doing something right. He leaned back further, the creak of his chair amplifying his subtle skepticism. Or something stupid, his eyes suggested. He dismissed them with a gesture. Go clean yourselves up. Go dark for a few days. No jobs, no meetings. I'll make some calls. Mono's hand trembled visibly as he nodded, betraying the storm brewing beneath his fragile composure. Stepping back into the night, the cool air hit them like a sobering slap. Mono's breath grew ragged, his steps uneven. She died in my arms. Mono's voice was barely audible, cracked and raw with grief. I loved her, man. Antonio didn't pause, didn't look back. Not here, Mono. Not now. Pull it together. He spoke gently but urgently, aware of the eyes that were always watching. They could afford no display of weakness, not here, not now. Mono understood. He swallowed hard, nodding sharply as they continued into the darkness. At Farmacia del Sol, they entered like specters of violence, guns visible, bloodied shirts sticking to their skin, jaws clenched with residual adrenaline. Raúl glanced up from his newspaper, resignation heavy in his gaze. You again? He muttered, shaking his head. What are you, a bullet magnet? Antonio gestured tersely toward Mono. He's hit. Shoulder. Raúl sighed deeply, setting his paper aside and grabbing his tools without further complaint. Sit. Let me work. Mono sat stiffly, teeth gritted, eyes squeezed shut as Raúl stitched his wound in swift, practiced motions. The silence was dense, oppressive. Only the sound of needle puncturing skin and thread pulling through flesh filled the small room. Outside again, they hailed another cab, Mono's face now ghostly pale. The tension within the cab stretched taut, a heavy silence hanging between them. We're almost there, Antonio murmured reassuringly. Just hold on. Mono remained silent, the turmoil in his eyes louder than words. Back at their small apartment, The door slammed shut behind them, a final barrier against the violent night. Mono collapsed heavily onto the worn-out couch, his breathing shallow. "I saw her eyes," Mono whispered, staring blankly at the ceiling. "She didn't deserve that." Antonio, silent, moved through the dark room, retrieving 2 beers from the fridge. "None of them do," he finally responded, his voice low but steady. He handed Mono the cold beer and lit 2 cigarettes, their tips glowing like twin embers in the shadows. The smoke curled upward, weaving ghostly tendrils between them, their quiet breaths mingling with it in shared grief. "They tried to kill me too," Antonio admitted after a moment. He reached into his pocket and withdrew the golden crucifix, holding it up for Mono to see. "I only survived because I bent down. Found this." Mono's eyes widened slightly, drawn to the glint of gold. He reached out, taking it gently into his palm, tracing its delicate form with his thumb. "Jesus," he murmured softly, reverently. Memories clouded his expression, a ghost of something long forgotten. "The nuns used to drag me to church," he admitted, voice barely audible. "I hated it. But maybe—" He didn't finish his thought, the weight of the unspoken words settling between them like an unspoken prayer.